What's up, you beautiful Last Podcast Network listener? You beautiful, it's true. My name is Jackie Zabrowski.
And my name is Molly Neffel, and we, along with Marcus, host Page 7, a pop culture and celeb gossip podcast that is nestled in the arms of the Last Podcast Network.
Ever want to listen to Marcus gal pal down with a couple of daddy-thirsty women, talking movies and throwing metaphorical barbs at the sadist industry of Gwyneth Paltrow, and discussing our shared love of Jason Momoa's face and body despite his terrible acting skills?
Check out Page 7. It's a positive romp through the boob tube and the funny papers that'll be sure to leave you loving Guy Fieri and knowing way too much about what Hulk Hogan said during his sex tape.
Oh yeah, he kept burping up barbecue while she boinked on it. Don't worry, we talk pop culture the way that most late 20s, 30s, 40s people talk pop culture. I may not know exactly what Bella Hadid does, but I know what love is.
Now is not the time for Forrest Gump impressions, Jackie. We are in the middle of an ad.
Okay, don't tase me, bro. You are a beauty that's fixin' to get iced by the beast.
The only way you're gonna ice me is with a cool tolly of Mango Rita.
Oh, get off it. Everyone knows that Grape Rita is the best flavor.
Actually, maybe they are all the best flavors.
Well, except Strawberry. Just saying. Try out a new flavor in your brain meat.
Please check out the ridiculousness that is Page 7, wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as the other shows on the Last Podcast Network.
I think you might like it.
Let the word go forth.
Fool me once.
Are you fired up?
I'm not a crook.
Are you ready to go?
Shame on you.
It's Abe Lincoln's Top Hats, hosted by Ben Kissel.
Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How you doing? Ben Kissel here. Travis Morningstar is with me as well.
Hey, Ben.
We have a fun interview coming up here a little bit later on. It's not the longest interview. It's not the shortest interview. It's just right. It's with Mohanad Elshieky. He's a stand-up comedian. He's on Team Coco. That's Conan O'Brien. He's been on Conan O'Brien. And he is originally from Libya. He's been in America for 4 years now. He sought asylum after the devastating situation that was going on in Libya. Of course, we have the post-Gaddafi Libya happening right now, and at least when Gaddafi was in power, you knew who to be scared of and who to avoid, and evidently now you have no idea. It's just a bunch of warlords taking over the country and destroying lives wherever they go.
The halcyon days of knowing who exactly was stomping on your neck.
What a nice time that was. Of course, Gaddafi, if you really want to get down a live leak rabbit hole, you can find the last day of his life. And my God, let's just say revenge was taken, specifically in an area that no man wants revenge taken in. So that is, if you want to watch that, you can. So that interview will be coming up a little bit later on here in the show. That's Mohanad Elshieky. Basically, what happened was, again, he is a U.S. resident. He sought asylum and was granted asylum. Really long process. A lot of money was spent. Went through all the right steps, got all the lawyers, did everything he had to do. He's on a Greyhound bus. Greyhound bus gets stopped. Agents come in to the bus, ask for papers, all of these things. And anyway, it's just an interesting story. He was detained briefly. It's just an interesting story. It could have been a lot worse. Obviously, in a perfect world, it never would have happened at all. But when we talk about, ICE officials or other government officials that are working with immigration, what does that look like in real life? How does that actually affect people's lives on a regular basis? I think his story is a great example of how disruptive some of these policies can be when they manifest themselves in reality. So that interview will be coming up a little bit later on here in the show. I also want to talk about a little bit later on, the U.S. has suspended a nuclear arms treaty deal with Russia. Of course, the Chinese right now are escalating their nuclear arsenal, and this is kind of an interesting development. Not a lot of people are talking about it. It's not so salacious or not as fun as one of Donald Trump's stupid tweets, but it is a big deal, and it's possible that this could lead to another arms race. Yay!
Nice.
We haven't had an arms race in so long. I want another one. So that is possible. We're also going to talk about Cory Booker. He has thrown his name into the ring now with the Democrats. Obviously, Kamala Harris. She's still running for president. And more and more, we're finding out about her record specifically on criminal justice. She calls herself a progressive prosecutor, which to me just rings like the liberals' version of when W. Bush would call himself a compassionate conservative.
Right.
It's good alliteration. I'm not exactly sure what it means. We have a little bit of sound of Kamala Harris talking about how some people say we need more schools, but I think we need more jails. And I don't, but as Travis said before we started recording, at least she has a policy.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's good.
At least I know what I'm like against.
Yeah, sure.
There's going to be no surprises there.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll also talk a little bit about Elizabeth Warren. She has apologized to the Cherokee Nation over her DNA test. And, I want to talk a little bit about what she's doing on social media specifically because I follow her on Instagram because I am young. I am cool. I know what's hip. And I know who to follow. Elizabeth Warren. I only follow women in their 60s. It's what I do, and I love it. But
nothing suspicious about that.
No, it's wonderful. It's totally normal. But she is really doing a good job, I have to say.
What is she doing on Instagram? Like braiding the hair of an American Girl doll? Or
No, she's not. No, I mean, that would be fun. I had American Girl dolls growing up. My grandmother bought me all of them. And they were paper dolls. And they weren't very fun. I had Playmobil, as I mentioned on last podcast on the left, and American Girl dolls. And I didn't have a lot of friends.
You had American Girl dolls?
My grandmother bought them for me. Yes, because I don't know why. I mean, I wasn't the gay one. Both of my older brothers are gay. You would have thought that they would have bought them for them, even though that's a stereotype and it wouldn't be accurate. But nonetheless, I got the American Girl dolls, and I mean, I played with them. I mean, I don't know what. They fought each other, and they were on the ranch and doing pioneer stuff. They had some, there were vegetation that they were taking care of on the kitchen table.
But eventually, it would settle into a tea party, right?
Well, you have to. They're American Girl dolls.
American
What
Girl
else are you going
dolls.
to do? Yeah, I mean, my God, I was 9 years old. Of course I'll have a little tea party. A little goldfish on the table that I got from the county fair. Dies immediately, by the way. But you're supposed to put a little salt in the water, I think.
That's what I heard, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that something? So Elizabeth Warren, she is doing well on Instagram, and of course she is coming out with her tax, the wealth tax is what she's calling it, the multi-millionaire tax or the extreme millionaire tax, whatever the heck they're calling it these days. Basically, it goes after 0.1% of America. It's roughly 75,000 people. These are these billionaires. And
tough stuff.
It is. Again, at least there's some policy coming forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about Elizabeth Warren, specifically in the context of this little DNA test and some other things that she's up to. She is doing a good job, I think, of traveling around, and she's coming across as personable. I really do think so. I watched some speeches she was giving, and she definitely has it down. She knows her message. She sticks with her message. And I don't know. Maybe
as long
she can
as
do
she
some
sticks
things
with that message and not the ancestry one.
I think she's gonna move on.
I think she learned her lesson.
She's doing an apology.
I think she learned her lesson.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but I could see there's something about her she's a little old timey. She's got a little old timey charm to her, and I kind of getting that old. What was it? Bryant, who ran against McKinley in 1900. She's got an old school kind of populism going about her that I kind of like.
She's from a state where people legitimately do ride horses down the street.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to get to work.
Yeah.
You have to get to the post office. So she's doing her thing. But because of this billionaire tax that she has proposed, and again, by today's standards with the Democratic Party, I'm excited. I am happy, by the way, that Kamala Harris is a little bit more hawkish on criminal justice. Obviously, we're going to have Cory Booker coming in, who, bought and sold by big pharmaceuticals, but that's a whole nother thing. They all kind of are. But then we have, someone more like an Elizabeth Warren, who I don't think will be nearly as hawkish on criminal justice as someone like a Kamala Harris. And then we also have the extremely wealthy. So we have Michael Bloomberg, who will perhaps throw his name into the ring. It looks like he probably will at this point. And of course, Bloomberg, he was the mayor here for 3 terms in New York. The 3rd term got totally crazy. He had this ridiculously stupid idea for a big soda ban at the cinemas, which was just so dumb because the cinemas, you only go there for the big soda, right?
It's the only time where I can get a soda that's the size of a tombstone.
Yeah, it should be the size of a small child, and that's the whole point. And you shouldn't have it every day. But that was a little bit ridiculous. And of course, the trans fat ban and stuff like that. So he did do some things that were a little bit what some people might say, quote, nanny state stuff. But at the same time, he did do some good things for the city as well. Economically, we were doing fairly well. And the subways were running, which I was fond of, as opposed to what we're having right now. So who knows if Bloomberg will be able to make some headwind with the Democratic Party in a Democratic primary. He does have experience, which is really good, and it's something that we cannot say about the first person we're going to talk about in depth here, Howard Schultz. So Howard Schultz, of course, you all know this. This dude, he's out of Seattle. He started Starbucks. He's the former CEO of Starbucks. And for the longest time, everyone thought he was like this big liberal donor, basically because he didn't really care if people used heroin in his bathrooms.
Yeah.
He's like, go for it. And then everyone's like, that is so progressive. And I'm like, I also could use the bathroom because I have to go to the bathroom because I just consumed buckets of horrible coffee, but nonetheless, I'll let the person go and finish doing their drugs in there. But now he has come out because, in response, I think it's safe to say in response to Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax, right?
Yeah.
I think it's safe. It kind of triggered him, and he said, no, not me. No, you can't.
That's not my style.
No, that's not my style. You can't attack me, Elizabeth. I'm going to get in myself.
This Quaker oatmeal robber baron wants to unite the country, but keep all the fat cat wealthy people just like chill.
Just totally chill, all of them. So Howard Schultz, one of the worst things that he did, other than making, really, I mean, we can say it's horrible coffee, right?
It's
bad.
It's overly acidic. It tastes burnt. These are not like new criticism. This is just Starbucks. Starbucks coffee tastes like.
And of course, he's on the front lines of the war against Christmas.
That's true. Oh, yeah,
so
that's right.
let's not forget that. That's really horrible because the cups they don't have a crucified Jesus Christ on them through the entire month of December. That is the war on Christmas. But Howard Schultz, in seriousness, did do some horrible things, including moving the Seattle Supersonics, of course, from Seattle, where he's supposed to be a great king of the Seattle people. He moved the Seattle Supersonics, and he says it was a huge mistake. It was a big regret, and he has apologized for it. But nonetheless, the damage is done. The Seattle Supersonics, they became the Thunder. So you can imagine if the Thunder were in Seattle, you'd have Westbrook. The crowds would be roaring, and as we know with the Seahawks, people love their sports in Seattle. Like to get stoned and watch sports. And then the only problem is all the hills.
Yeah.
There's too many hills in Seattle. But that's okay. What can you do? You can't level them. So this is what he said regarding the Seattle Supersonics. He says, I'm responsible for what took place. He continues, he says, and I think the lesson is that when you have power and responsibility like I did with the Sonics, you must demonstrate restraint. It's a very hard lesson. I have to live with that lesson, and it's a mistake that I made, and I apologize. So you can imagine, let's see, I'm trying to think, what was my last big mistake? Like let's see, just a Ben Kissel doozy.
You bought that $2,000 belt.
I did buy the $2,000 Universal Championship belt. I'm not going to call that a mistake, though, because
every
every
time...
an
investment, actually, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it was an investment, and every time I see the joy in my friends' eyes when they hold it, that's like $10.
That is true. Yeah.
So I'm like $1,500 in.
That's true.
So people really like that. I'm going to say I had a trip to the Moxie Hotel in Minneapolis, and I can't get a refund because I didn't stay there, because I got there and I did not like the establishment. So you know what I did, Travis? I went to the casino. And anyway, Moxie Hotel still owes me $500. I don't know if that's my mistake, really. Well, nonetheless, I have mistakes. We all know that.
I have a couple on the top of my head, actually. The time you fell asleep in the lobby of a hotel that we weren't staying at.
Oh, right before. Okay, that's a good one. That's a blooper. Yeah, that's a blooper. That was in Indianapolis. We were out there, and I told this story on the live show. By the way, check out the live show if you haven't already. It's only $6.66, and www.lastpodcastlive.com. That's where you can find it. So check that out. It's still out there. And I talk about this in that episode, or in that little special there. In Indianapolis, the beer is free. They pay you to drink. And I was sitting down at a bar, and this chick said, I said, I'll have a Bud Light. And then I can already hear you say Bud Light Lime. No, I don't drink Bud Light Lime. That's a Henry Zabrowski lie. And I said, I'll have a Bud Light. And then she said, oh, it's cheaper if you just get the pitcher. So I saved a lot of money. Fiscally responsible Ben Kissel. Did end up in the wrong hotel. Did end up in a lobby. Did end up sleeping just briefly until I could get my druthers. And then I was able to Uber back to my
That does prove how much you scared the people that worked at this other hotel, that they did not bother you.
No, I'm very nice. It was just like I was when you're traveling. Nonetheless, I didn't sell the Supersonics. That's
true.
what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
What I'm saying is a Howard Schultz mistake, a Ben Kissel mistake is, okay, you have too much beers. You're having a nice time hanging out with people. Being a man of the people. By the way, when I'm serving in office, I won't be drinking beers, okay? Gee, I already hear the criticisms. Good God. What I'm saying is Howard Schultz sold and moved a professional basketball team. And that's what his idea of a mistake is. Thank you. I was also late to the airport in Canada one time. It almost cost us a flight. Unfortunately, this apology was around a 7-minute long apology. And apparently it was just full. It was just totally full of he misspoke multiple times. Here's an outright lie that Howard Schultz said, again, regarding a professional basketball team. But I'm just going to say, I'm sick of the freaking lies. That's why Kristen Gillibrand, who I haven't even gotten to yet, you go back, and of course, she's a senator here in New York. And in October, she's talking about how she's not running and she's going to serve her term out. And I know they all say it. I'm just so sick of everyone freaking lying all the damn. Like, Trump is really... I'm just so sick of lying all the time.
Yeah.
That now a little lie to me, and of course, Kirsten Gillibrand's big claim to fame is the sculp of Al Franken. She basically
got him ousted, right? Or she
was on the front
she
line.
insisted upon him leaving.
Yeah. She's doing the Republicans' work for him. So, here's an outright lie that Howard Schultz said regarding the selling of the Seattle Supersonics. He's like, I was convinced that if an out-of-town buyer were to buy the team that in the city of Seattle, the mayor and the city council would understand that an out-of-town buyer might have bought the team. And if he doesn't renegotiate the lease and get the lease that he deserves, he's going to take the team and move. And the city of Seattle basically said, no, we don't care if it's an out-of-town buyer or not. We're not negotiating. What do you need? I hate these owners. It happened in San Diego, too, with the Chargers. Now, of course, they're out in L.A. The stadium is fine. Everything is okay. The billionaire wants tax money to go to their stupid frickin' stadium, and as soon as they don't get it, they whine, they bitch, and they take their ball and they go someplace else. And we're seeing that on the macro level now with Donald Trump, specifically regarding the wall. He's not getting what he wants.
So I think instead he's going to write Sicario 3 if that Rose Garden speech was any indication.
I swear to God, there's an interesting Instagram video out. I think it was on Instagram. I don't know. I feel stupid even saying that, but it really is funny if you look at Sicario and you see, the images of that movie.
Yeah.
And then if you put that with what Donald Trump says happens when individuals are coming over the border with their great big vehicles,
they're fast, they're furious.
They're fast, they're furious. Vin Diesel is driving all of them. I think one of the guys died actually accidentally while driving.
I saw it.
It's ridiculous. He might just be getting his ideas from movies. He's
Dave the Soledad. Yes, he's writing the sequel to Sicario with that the tape over the mouths. They've got walls, bodies stuffed in the walls.
I know it, man. It's unreal. So here's another outright lie Schultz said. He said, for 5 years we went forward. The team did well 1 year, not so well the other 4. And each year we were not only losing money, but we were losing more money than before. In actuality, the team made the playoffs twice in Schultz's tenure as owner from 2002. In 2002 and 2005, the team's overall record in the 5 full seasons was 209 to 201. Okay, not great, but not the worst. But what makes Schultz's poor mouthing of the team's record so disingenuous is that he himself advocated this big talk about a 5-year plan, at the end of which the team would be a contender. At the time, he saw this team as mediocre. But then, of course, he said he was gonna rebuild the team, and instead of rebuilding the team, he just shipped them off. So this is Howard Schultz in a nutshell. He's just another one of these billionaire businessmen who don't take into account the people that he's going to be affecting with his so-called mistakes. In this case, uprooting a beloved NBA franchise. And I know I'm just kind of harping on this, but I'm a basketball fan, I'm a sports fan, and I think sports are really important. Sports are really important
You
to
think
cities.
this is indicative of his overall
of who he
style?
is.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So now Elizabeth Warren comes in. I'm going to tax billionaires 2%, 3%, something like that. And, which it's not the worst idea. It's certainly not unheard of. Dwight D. Eisenhower had extremely high tax rates. And we're talking about a situation that we have now in this country where there is no more middle class. And that's the problem. And I think, Trump was able to kind of hit on it a little bit. Bernie Sanders certainly hit on it quite a bit. And Elizabeth Warren, I think, is doing a good job of, it's not Hispanics, it's not refugees, it's not immigrants taking your job, screwing you over. It's just it's the flow of money to the top.
Economic disparity. Like, it's just straight up.
It's straight up. And the past 30 years have been absolutely abysmal when it comes to that. So I think good politicians understand that. And the question is, how do you best relate that message to the people? That's why people went from Obama to Trump. Like, how can that happen? Well, because they thought that Obama was talking to them about struggles of the middle class, and they thought Trump was talking to them about struggles of the middle class. And I think Elizabeth Warren is doing a good job of expressing her tax is a crappy word. Whenever I hear tax, I'm like, I don't like it. We just had to pay taxes this year, and this is the Republican tax plan, and it was a doozy. I don't like it, the word, but she's doing a good job of explaining why. What's gone on in Washington for the past 30 years. It's just, from the corporate boardroom to Capitol Hill. These are fluid. These are fluid positions. We see it all the time with someone who is, out of office and then immediately gets a job in one of these large lobbyist corporations. John Boehner at least has done it right. He got into weed. Which is pretty great.
That was so left field.
John Boehner is like kind of my low-key favorite dude ever. He just chain smokes and was pretty chill, and then just got into weed and was like, fuck it.
Amazing.
Yeah, why not? So she's doing a good job of expressing that, because that's what we see as the American people. That's just so frustrating. You just see this group of elites go from one position to the other position of power, and it really does sort of blur the line of what kind of oligarchic society are we living in right now in this sort of post-capitalist world, So this is really an attack on the oligarchs. This is an attack
the obscenely
wealthy and the oligarchs of this country. And the problem, of course, the main question is, and this is the question that has to be debated, is then if the tax does go through, which would be extremely unlikely.
Right.
But if it would, then what does the government do with the money? That's the big concern. Does it just go to feed some war machine? Does it just go into the military? Does it go to something like a border wall? Obviously, if Elizabeth Warren is president, it wouldn't be, but theoretically this tax would be there. After she was gone. So that's the big question is because the government doesn't have a great history of allocating funds properly,
right,
as we're seeing, because I think Domino's, our pizza company, is currently paving roads. So there's something wrong.
Right. But if you do have a politician that successfully passes this kind of tax hike on the obscenely wealthy, that person is probably also interested in healthcare for all, which is ideally a kind of project that you would want to use those funds for.
Right, and of course now Kamala Harris has come out and straight up just said she doesn't want any private industry whatsoever in healthcare. I don't think we have to go that far, but there has to be a good balance between the two and a viable option. That was the crappy thing that happened with Obamacare. Once everyone just realized that their options became extremely limited. That was really that was a problem. And then, of course, their premiums went through the roof because of the lack of options. And so, that's the thing with healthcare. It really kind of is. I understand the single payer. I understand, basically, you just have to go all in.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, you basically have to do it. But the question is, how do you just completely eliminate an entire industry? It would be such do you think it would be on par of Brexit? It would be such a big deal. This is a multi-billion dollar industry.
Sure.
So it would be tricky. That's all I'm saying.
Just do it. God damn it. I'm obviously of the mind that it just has to be done.
I'm not sure if they'll ever get the votes to straight up go
that's the
out
thing.
there. But we shall see. That's the exciting thing with these primaries coming up for the Democratic Party. Some difference of opinions there. And, obviously something has to be fixed with our healthcare system. Of course, pre-existing conditions, all that total and utter nonsense. But the Republicans say that they're for eliminating pre-existing conditions, but then on the back end, they work. Oh, I mean, hell, the Democrats do it too. Obamacare was a huge boom for the healthcare industry.
Right.
So that's one of those. That's a subject that I'll have to get a real, true, hardcore expert on here to talk about, because it is like mind-numbing when you really get into it. But of course, going back just briefly, so with Elizabeth Warren, we got the wealth tax. Now we have Howard Schultz coming out and saying, that he's pretty upset about it, so he's going to run as an independent. Now, when it comes to the wealthy, I do have some information here. Now, some wealthy people actually do pay. They actually do pretty good. Bill and Melinda Gates, they do 37% of their net worth. They give that to charity. That's good. Warren Buffett's not so bad, 36%. Michael Bloomberg gives 13% of his $46 billion. So that's $6 billion to charity. It's so much money. It's crazy. Mark Zuckerberg and his I think his wife, Priscilla Chan, he made $54 billion off of us. Isn't that nice? Our data is worth $54 billion. He gave $2 billion. And of course, Donald Trump, who made $3 billion net worth. That's what they say, although I think that's a little bit big. He only gave 3% of his net worth, with $102 million in charitable donations. And most likely that was some bizarre scam. And then Jeff Bezos is the actual worst, of course,
yes.
The man who is in charge of Amazon, the man who is crushing small businesses all across the country. And he's going to be doing that right here in Long Island City,
Love
too.
It. Can't wait. When
he brings his Amazon headquarters to LIC, which is going to jack up the rents and close a bunch of nice, affordable restaurants. Jeff Bezos, he's worth $160 billion. He gave a whopping $146 million to charity, which is 0.0906%, not even 1% of his wealth. So when we talk about trickle-down economics, when we talk about, is it fair to tax the wealthy for doing well? Well, in a lot of ways, I would be, if everyone was Bill and Melinda Gates, I would say they're paying 37%. Yeah. Like, no, I'm actually okay.
Philanthropy is nice, but paying your fair share is better.
And if everyone was paying, if they were doing
if
that,
everyone was,
if it was
Bill
a perfect world, if it was a perfect world and people weren't greedy monsters, I would say, okay, look at that, wonderful, 37%, 36%, that's awesome. But then we have Jeff Bezos, $160 billion, gave $146 million. I mean, less than 1%. So that's why a rhetoric from Elizabeth Warren is getting a lot of traction, because people see that. It makes them pissed off. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and we saw how real that is with the government shutdown, what paycheck to paycheck looks like. I mean, it's devastating. The news stories coming out were so hard to listen to. TSA workers never had more sympathy in the world, by the way. Can you imagine? That's how bad Washington is.
Yes.
It literally made Americans feel bad for TSA. Not since Lil Rel in Get Out did TSA agents have such good press.
Yeah.
They never have good. They're horrible.
Yeah.
No one likes TSA agents.
For a while, they were right alongside airline food as far as jokes go.
Oh my God, heavy. Yeah.
And now we're like, I'll fight for the honor of the TSA agents.
Fight for their rights to TSA, whatever that means. So that is why she is, I think, doing a good job, and I think her message is resonating with a lot of people who don't fully understand why they're getting so screwed. And it might be the same people that bought into Donald Trump's lie about immigration. It really could be. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets the nomination. She's on the ticket. If we see Trump-Warren districts, it's extremely, extremely possible. Going back just briefly to Howard Schultz. So a lot of people are extremely concerned. They're like, oh my God, he's going to throw the election to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
We're going to, okay. I say this, and this is what I said on Dana Perino's show, the Daily Briefing. Of course, she used to be the press secretary for W. But relax. Just first of all, he's not going to do well in the vote. And second of all, going back to Ross Perot in 1992. So a lot of Republicans think that Ross Perot cost H.W. Bush the election. But if you look at the actual exit polling data, it was about 50-50 split between people who would have voted for Clinton or would have voted for Bush. So it really kind of worked itself out. And then if you look at the two states that Perot did best in, it was Texas and it was Florida.
Right.
And H.W. won both of those states.
Right.
So when it comes to the Electoral College, it's, I know people want to talk about like spoilers and stuff like that. First of all, I'm with Chuck Todd of MSNBC, Meet the Press. I love Chuck Todd. But I agree with him. It's up to the candidate to get the votes.
Right.
This whole idea of like, oh my God, you spoiled the party. Get your freaking votes. Go to Wisconsin, Hillary. Go to Michigan. Get your freaking votes. Do your job. And then we don't have to have this conversation. When it comes to Ralph Nader, so I think that's a lie. When it comes to Perot swinging the election to Bill Clinton, who of course did not get 50% of the vote. And then we also have 2000. So some people on the left blame Ralph Nader for what happened when it comes to Al Gore, when it comes to Florida. But if you the real scandal in Florida is Katherine Harris purging 58,000 people from the voting rolls.
Right.
Basically what they did was they sent this letter out. They're like, well, we don't have felons vote in this state. Here's 58,000 just names, no pictures, no like any identifying characteristics, just names of 58,000 people and tens of thousands of people. Many of them folks who were going to vote for Al Gore for whatever reason. Many of them were purged from the voting rolls, and they were totally legal to vote. And of course, that whole thing ends. Supreme Court makes their decision, and some people want to blame Ralph Nader. The fact of the matter is, Ralph Nader, he did a good job of bringing some issues to the forefront, specifically when it comes to consumer advocacy. I mean, that's his whole thing, was consumer advocacy. So this is supposed to be a country of the marketplace of ideas. So don't, like, if Howard Schultz does decide to run, first of all, I don't see him taking that many votes away from the Democratic candidate. I just don't see it. I don't think that he represents where the Democratic Party is going. I mean, I can see a Republican. I can see Bill Kristol voting for Howard Schultz. I can see disaffected suburbanites in Trump land voting for Howard Schultz, who would never vote for a Democrat anyway. So I don't think that it's true that he will be taking votes away from the Democratic candidate. If anything, he could very well be taking votes away from Donald Trump. So to me, it was when he announced and then everyone freaked out. I was like, don't be so, like, I understand there's a lot of trauma with 2016. A lot of people thinking they had it all ready to go. It's in the bag. But don't freak out, because he's not going to swing the election for Donald Trump if he does get in.
The kind of person,
it's just more aggravating.
The
than
kind
anything.
of person that would vote for Howard Schultz is also the same person that would buy like the Michael Bublé Josh Groban duet album that's at the front
best.
of Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best.
No, I've never seen anyone buy those. It's like an anomaly that anyone would.
But now it's Bublé and
Josh Groban.
And Josh Groban.
Doing a duet album.
A duet.
Yeah.
Huh. Now, is it
perhaps a couple covers of Christmas songs?
Oh my goodness! Now we were talking.
So that's
Christmas.
Howard Schultz. That's the equivalent of Howard Schultz as a presidential candidate.
Well, now I might vote for him. That sounds kind of fun.
If he opens his Twitter notifications, that should be enough for him to realize, like, I can't do this.
I don't know. Twitter's a hellscape, but yeah,
he's getting more roasted than the coffee that he serves.
He's getting That's a hot joke. That's a hot joke. We also should talk a little bit about Roger Stone. He got indicted. And let's see. Yeah, let's talk about Stone, and then we can go back and let's talk. We'll wrap it up here with Elizabeth Warren. So just lastly, with Elizabeth Warren, she has apologized to the Cherokee Nation for the DNA test. Senior Senator Elizabeth Warren, she's a Massachusetts Democrat. She apologized, and this is what Kelly Hayes, a Native American writer, she says, "I'm glad to see that Elizabeth Warren has apologized for the whole DNA test debacle. Connecting with members of the Cherokee Nation in this way was always the way forward. Also, I hope that the folks who painted myself and others as fringe outliers for discussing this feel foolish." But of course, there are some people who still aren't happy. Twilla Barnes, a Cherokee genealogist, she's been critical of Miss Warren's claims of her Native American ancestry since it became national news. In 2012, she said she needs to go public and say she fully takes responsibility and that the DNA test was ridiculous. There's still something about this that feels off. So we'll see, if that scandal continues to dog her. Talking about lying, when it comes to Kirsten Gillibrand, or at least Kamala Harris isn't lying, and we're going to play a sound here in a second of her criminal justice.
Very upfront.
She's very upfront about her lack of criminal justice reform, I guess, or criminal justice reform in a much more conservative sense. More conservative than I believe that we need to have it in this country. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, we'll see how much that dogs her. But again, she's doing a good job. She's out there. She's meeting with the people. And I think she's got really a lot of upside and a lot of good potential. She stays on message, very much like Bernie used to be able to do. I don't know if he's ever going to get in or not. And again, who knows what's going to happen with Bernie Sanders? There's some stuff swarming around the world. Who knows what's going to happen? But so who knows? So that's Elizabeth Warren. Let's go on to Kamala Harris really quick, and then we'll talk about Roger Stone, and then we'll talk about nukes, and then we'll talk about Robert Mueller. He made a mistake, which is something that we don't often hear. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So Kamala Harris, of course, big rollout. She's, she's got, the poll numbers are going in the right direction. Still not that, no one is beating Biden still. But of course, if you're Joe Biden, just stay on the sidelines as long as possible, because as soon as you get in, then you have a target on your back. So right now he's able to just kind of sit at in the 30s. He's around 35% of support. And of course, the Democratic Party is sitting fairly well with 56%. If you give people just a blank ballot and they're like Democrat or Republican, it's 56% Democrat. That's good. But of course, again, we have 2016 to remember, and candidates do matter. So Kamala Harris, she is reminding me a lot of Bill Clinton in the early 90s, when Bill Clinton ran for office as a Democrat, of course. He ran on a strict criminal justice reform policy. 3 strikes and you're out, mandatory minimums. This is, of course, the super predator moment. This is, if you go back, and as I've mentioned multiple times, listen to his State of the Union, it reads just extremely conservative. Extremely conservative. So Kamala Harris, understanding that this is probably not a bad strategy to have when getting, again, those disaffected Republicans, like I just used Bill Kristol as an example, but there's a lot of never Trump Republicans out there who share her views on criminal justice. It's possible she's able to peel a lot of their support. This is what she had to say when asked about the question of, should we build more schools as opposed to more prisons? And this is just a little spiel that she gives when talking about this. And if you get a chance to watch the clip, she's quite animated. But there's something almost Dick Cheney about the joy in her voice when talking about things that are so, devastating to people. Let's play it.
We all have these posters in our closet that is attached to a stick that we sometimes will cart out when we're talking about criminal justice policy, and we run around with these signs: build more schools, less jails. Build more schools, less jails. And we walk around everywhere. Build more schools. We protest. Build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach, in my opinion. And it's this. I agree with that conceptually. But you have not addressed the reason I have 3 padlocks on my front door. So part of the discussion about reform of criminal justice policy has to be an acknowledgement that crime does occur. And especially when it is violent crime and serious crime, well, there should be a broad consensus that there should be serious and severe and swift consequence to crime.
All right, there it is. So, of course, the correlation between schools and prisons, the notion is that if you educate people, they have a better chance of getting a job, of finding success, of finding self-worth, finding a mentor. Perhaps they don't need to break into your home. I understand that crime happens. Of course, we are in one of the lower crime times in the history of the world, specifically in the history of this country. This, reminds me a little bit of H.W. when he was running against Dukakis, Massachusetts governor, much more liberal on crime. Of course, the famous Willie Horton ads, all those kinds of things. They painted him weak on crime. So she's going all in with being tough on crime. And again, is that what we need right now? Is we have the largest prison population in the world, even more than China, and China is horrible. Although we don't get a lot of information from China, so who knows? They're killing people left and right for being Muslims or Christians or Jewish who have to worship the state. China is getting worse and worse every single day. Of course, they're having their new what's it called? The social credit system. They're going to start in 2020. But the question is, for the Democratic Party, do you want to be the party of law and order? Politically, I could see this not hurting her. I think it will. First of all, in all honesty, she has a bit of a Teflon shield being African American and a woman. It's going to allow a lot of white people who don't mind seeing black people or brown people in prison to say, well, it's okay because I'm not racist or anything because I'm voting for a black woman.
It assuages so much guilt, I'm sure.
It really does.
But like we said before, I mean, it's nice that she's upfront about her policies.
It is.
Her campaign slogan might be Kamala Harris, 3 hots in a cot. Or Kamala Harris,
Sure.
Kamala Harris, make America a super jail.
It could be, every Walmart, make it a jail. Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos all commission-free. While other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees, so you can trade stocks and keep all of your profits. Plus, there is no account minimum deposit needed to get started, so you can start investing at any level. The simple, intuitive design of Robinhood makes investing easier for newcomers and experts alike. View easy-to-understand charts and market data, and place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone. You can also view stock collections, such as 100 most popular. With Robinhood, you can learn how to invest in the market as you build your portfolio, discover new stocks, track your favorite companies, and get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners of Abe Lincoln's Top Hat a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you build your portfolio. Sign up at tophat.robinhood.com. And of course, in a binary situation, what are the other options? Although Donald Trump with Jared Kushner, they have actually been more progressive on criminal justice reform than a lot of people are talking about because it just goes against wide sweeping media narratives, which are always ridiculous and a little bit, they leave a little bit of facts behind. We don't have any policy discussion in this entire country. But anyway, so that is Kamala Harris. That's what she's going to be. That is not all that she's going to be doing. Obviously, she's also talking about like single payer and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see if she's going to be able to, if that's going to be a winning message. It's possible. It really is possible that it works because it worked for the Clintons. And progressive prosecutor. Just get ready to hear those 2 words over and over again. I hate it. I really hate it. Progressive prosecutor. Because, of course, prosecutors have done some really horrible things in this country, but then also they've done some good things too. But who knows? When it comes to prosecutions, specifically when it comes to like the Me Too movement, for example, as we're seeing now with what's going on with Harvey Weinstein, there is that sort of tinge to it as well, where they're sick and tired, specifically with the Me Too movement, of having allegations of rape just not be, not be addressed, like what happened with Cosby. I think that allegation came out in like 2000. I might be getting this wrong, but I think it was like 2005 or something like that. She came to the police and they're like, no, it's not. We can't do anything. Right. So from that perspective, I do understand law and order or criminal justice because that is dog shit if you go and report a violent rape. And then the law or the backlog, the so-called rape test kit backlog. It's not a backlog. They're just not testing them. Right, it's a backlog if you're working on it, but they're just not. So I get it from that perspective. And I think that you can swing that as more of a liberal lens. But then we really have to look at the just over incarceration of our youth and of people in this country. It really is. It's just abhorrent. Our criminal justice system is totally broken. In a binary election, do you think the Republican Party, without Donald Trump there, would do any good? Would do any better? Probably not. But who knows? So this just reminds me of Bill Clinton. Yeah. And hell, Bill Clinton won. Howard, maybe this is shaping up to be 91. If Howard Schultz gets in, we have an incumbent president that's kind of getting, as HW was, Grover Norquist, that wing of the Republican Party, turned on him. Trump, a lot of people are turning on him now, as we saw with the funding bill to keep the government open. A couple of Republicans signed on to a bill that didn't have wall funding. And we'll probably just start to see more and more and more of that. So this might be history repeating. This could be an interesting time to go back and look at what happened in the 91 campaign, 92 campaign. And who knows? There
are a lot of liberal voters that like a hall monitor. Like they
do.
They
Absolutely.
love rules. And, rule of law is not like, exclusive from right-wing stuff at all.
No, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And of course, you know, I know when it comes to, as we saw in Utah, for example, when they just passed it, I think it's 0.5 now or 0.05. Yeah, it's definitely 0.05. 0.5 would be a lot, but 0.5 when it comes to drinking and driving. A lot of times these are more left-leaning people pushing for that kind of stuff. And I mean, I disagree with it, but you know. But that is why it's so difficult to get any criminal justice reform, because it is politically advantageous to be more hawkish, because as Donald Trump is doing, as we saw with Kate Steinle when it comes to immigration, they pick out a few stories, and these are real stories. I'm not downgrading that, but they blow them up. They magnify them to be like everything. And of course, Kate Steinle was shot by an illegal immigrant, and it was horrible, and that's devastating. And then they just paint the entire
right. It doesn't
illegal
necessarily
immigrant.
represent the world or what is actually happening.
But that's the way it works. So it's so easy for them to just run an ad like the Willie Horton ad and be like, "See, look, this," and no one can disagree with either the death or the Willie Horton ad. I believe he raped and murdered 2 women or something when he got out for the weekend. So no one can deny that. So anyway, we'll see if it works for her. And as I said before, I'm optimistic, and I think it's fine. I'm not even against having a more conservative criminal justice candidate for the Democratic Party. I want to hear all of the ideas. And again, I do think because of the way that the party is looking, who knows how well she does. But I think it's really possible, because African American, because she's a female, coming from California. I think there's going to be some people that will be able to overlook these really hawkish stances. Because you can imagine if someone who looked like, if someone who looked like me said that, I think people would be like, "You're a total racist," you know. But of course, it is what it is. So anyway,
it's definitely a more compelling message than Howard Schultz's. Let's,
well, he doesn't have a message.
Unite the country.
What does that mean?
Let's share a coffee and discuss ideas. Let's bring everyone back together.
No, Howard Schultz, when he doesn't even have, like, he didn't like write anything down. Yeah. I don't understand. He just like was like, unite the country. He's like, what does that mean? He's like,
you just really like freestyle platituding.
Yes. Like, anyway, it doesn't matter. Who knows? Again, relax with all that. Okay, let's just get here briefly to what's gone on with Roger Stone, a man who I kind of know a little bit. He is, first of all, he just dresses from the supervillain cook, or like from the like the supervillain LL Bean. I don't know where he gets his clothes.
Straight out of the Adam West Batman series.
But he has been indicted, so this is it's a pretty big get, I guess, for the Mueller probe. But once again, we don't have any indictment regarding collusion. And we also have, this was kind of a good week in a strange way for Donald Trump, because we just found out that the Donald Trump Jr. phone call to some anonymous person after the Trump Russia meeting wasn't Donald Trump. So he tweeted about that immediately.
Well, he doesn't have his dad's phone number, so that would have been impossible.
That's possible. Very true. Of course, Donald Trump Jr., the I guess, what is it called? The leaf? The fig?
Yeah, sure.
The fig doesn't fall far from the bush. He just tweeted about S and L.
Yes.
He was upset with S and L.
This looks like one of those sketches on S and L,
which is, of course,
week and update,
Saturday and live. So Roger Stone, he is the colorful former longtime political advisor to Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump has said now that he's in trouble that he barely knew him. Which is obviously a lie. A spokesperson for Mueller's office said Stone, 66, was arrested in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where my parents live.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful area. On Friday morning, after being indicted. This was last Friday morning. Yeah. After being indicted by a federal grand jury a day earlier. And if you watch the raid, they were like serious. I was like, he does work out. But there were a lot of guns. It looks like,
Roger Stone posts so many shirtless pics of him like flexing and talking about like getting ready for a civil war. Like he posted stuff on his Twitter about like training with guns and stuff. I mean, apparently it's not over. It wasn't like outrageous in the grand scheme of like.
I think they're always outrageous, but
our authorities are like over militarized.
Oh yeah,
but like.
What was Stone gonna do? I mean, but anyway, yeah. I mean, I think that about everything. If you get a chance to watch, there's a great documentary called "Do Not Resist." I highly recommend it. It follows police departments all across the country. And at one point, they're in Wisconsin, and I forget what frickin' like Barron, Wisconsin, or something like that. Maybe Sheboygan. They bought a tank, and I'm like, why do you need a tank? The sheriff is driving around the streets in a frickin' tank like it's the Red Dawn. It's ridiculous. So,
it's always amazing to go to like a small town. This happened a lot when I was living in Georgia. I'd drive through a small town that had nothing, and then you would see the police officer driving a Dodge Charger.
It's all souped up.
A souped up car. It was like amazing.
So they busted into Stone's house. He was only able to get his little crocodile shirt. Remember what's that little crocodile?
Lacoste.
Yeah, Lacoste.
Yeah.
He got his little Lacoste shirt on. This is what Sarah Sanders had to say about this. Sarah Sanders, by the way, if you get a chance, go out there and listen to her. She's talking in some Christian program, and she's talking about how God sent us Donald Trump. So if you were a big believer before, maybe not anymore.
God sent us the plague. He sent us
whatever. Also, on a quick side note, watch the documentary from 2000. I think it's called The Eyes of Tammy Faye or Through the Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Right.
All about Tammy Faye Baker.
Yeah.
Jerry Falwell screwed over the Baker family, and the whole religious right is so corrupt and so disgusting. But it's narrated by RuPaul, and it's great. So that's from 2000. The Eyes of Tammy Baker.
That sounds awesome. It's narrated by RuPaul.
It's really good, yeah, because Tammy Faye was big in the drag community. Because she honestly dressed, a lot like that. So, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders told reporters on Friday, this doesn't have anything to do with the president. It doesn't have anything to do with the White House, which is, of course, a lie. And Trump lawyer Jay Sekulow said the Russian indictment today does not allege Russian collusion by Roger Stone or anyone else. Rather, the indictment focuses on alleged false statements Mr. Stone made to Congress. These false statements, we're talking about emails that he said he never sent, correspondences that he said he never had, and of course lying to Congress. So it's similar to what we saw with Papadopoulos and a lot of the other indictments that are coming down. Still Paul Manafort, I would say, were the most serious ones. We'll see. He said he's going to plead not guilty. The indictment says Stone spoke to Trump campaign officials during the summer of 2016 about WikiLeaks and information the organization had that might be damaging to the Clinton campaign. It also says Stone was contacted, quote, by senior Trump campaign officials to inquire about future WikiLeaks releases of hacked Democratic emails during an appearance on Wednesday evening on Tucker Carlson's show. Woo, Tucker. You know, I know him. I don't know what's going on. Donald Trump has warped the minds of many people. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Get tucked.
Get tucked. Get tuckered. Stone insisted he would not turn on the president and cooperate with prosecutors like former lawyer did Michael Cohen. This is according to Stone. He says, no matter how much pressure they put on me, no matter what they say, I will not bear false witness against Donald Trump. He continued to say, I will not do what Michael Cohen has done and make up lies to ease pressure on myself. Of course, really angling hard for a pardon. And it's extremely possible that Donald Trump will oblige and give him one. So former Hillary Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta on Twitter, he wrote this. He says, Roger's time in the barrel. That was a play on Stone's own words. Stone had tweeted cryptically before Podesta emails were disclosed that it would soon be Podesta's time in the barrel. He goes on to say, and it's headed over Niagara Falls. So this is John Podesta being funny. Roger's time in the barrel, and it's headed over Niagara Falls. Roger Stone, advisor to Trump, is indicted in Mueller investigation. So this is it's a big deal, of course, as all of it is. Other convictions include former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, former campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, former campaign advisor Rick Gates, and, of course, Paul Manafort. Former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to making false statements in a case in November. Of course, that case was brought by Mueller. So that's the most recent chip to fall in the Mueller-Russia investigation. And again, I just get so I'm almost sick of talking, because if you watch CNN, it's just circling and I just want to wait until the papers are out. And also, as I've always said, Robert Mueller is still just a German inquisitor. He's not like a god. I saw another person wearing a t-shirt with him on it and I almost gagged. I'm like, dude, he is, if you go back and listen to his speeches, he hasn't changed. He's the same. Just because you don't like Trump, Robert Mueller, Who knows? I don't want to hang out with the guy. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot of like fanfic, erotic, Chuck Tingle style stuff going on, like indicted in my own ass by my own indictment. Now, I do want to point out on Roger Stone's website, on Friday, when he did get indicted, everything on his merch page went on sale.
Really?
So you can buy your own Roger Stone. It is a pebble with his autograph on it.
Get out of here.
It was originally $12. Folks, it's $10 now.
Really?
Yes. And you could also buy the Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt.
Oh,
or
wow.
a poster for your room that lays out all of Stone's rules, some of which include attack, attack, attack. Business is business. Hate is a stronger motivator than love.
Oh, my God.
And think big, be big.
He's like a Big Johnson shirt who really loves fascism.
He's a human Big Johnson shirt.
Wow. Attack, attack, attack. Okay.
Be a big dog.
Be a big dog, man. Be the big dog on the yard. Take the biggest piss. You got the biggest dumps, you're the biggest dog. Of course you do. Ridiculous. So we'll see what happens with that. I do believe that Stone will stick to his guns and not cooperate. I don't think that he will. He is a different kind of beast. He's in it for the long haul, of course. If you go out there and watch his little documentary, I mean, it makes him look, I don't know if it makes him look good. It represents him.
I mean, it definitely reveals a lot about him.
He's happy about it. That's all you need to know.
All of his like weird deviant backpage sex, shit.
That was the best thing about him.
No, yeah, it's like he is actually that strange.
That's another thing when it comes to Kamala Harris. Thank you for reminding me. Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand, both huge proponents of Sesta Fosta.
The
Backpage ban, which really just pushed the industry further underground. Of course, the sex industry. I'm against that.
Yeah.
Because we know a lot of sex workers here, just with our shows and some of our fan base are sex workers, and they would use those to communicate and be like, yo, don't hang out with XYZ. Yeah. This dude is no good. And now they don't have that anymore.
Now it's more dangerous. It's more Wild West.
And that's the irony of all of that so-called, legislation. That's the road to hell. It's always paved with good intentions. And that was a horrible piece of legislation. And if you voted against it, then they would say, you're for human sex trafficking. It's like, no, I'm not, you morons. I'm actually for keeping, the more we know, the more that's in light, the safer it will be. That is why we have streetlights and cameras everywhere. The same rules should apply for the internet. So that's another area where I disagree with Kamala Harris, although I'm sure most of the candidates would be, I don't know any of them that opposed it. I don't know.
Yeah. Who'd be like, oh no, I'm totally pro all this stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's just because you have to explain why.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's an easy soundbite to say that they're for sex trafficking, and then you'll be like, what?
You can't be like a middle-aged person watching Jeopardy, and then the politician comes on and is like, I'm pro-sex worker. Like, It's just not something that is going to resonate with some of these people.
And it's always about getting, not the Jeopardy crowd anymore. We got to get the Wheel of Fortune crowd.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Definitely the Wheel of Fortune crowd.
The Pat Sajak folks.
Maybe get a little bit of that. What was that fun show with Bob Barker?
Price is Right.
Price is Right. Maybe a little Price is Right crowd in there also. Okay, so that's what's going on with Roger Stone. We'll wait to see what happens with that. Now, this is kind of an interesting misstep for Robert Mueller. An 18-page court filing. Basically, what happened was there's in the all those Russians that were charged, but naturally they're not going to be coming over. They also charged this company Concord Management and Consulting. So Concord Management, they showed up to court. Basically, their lawyer showed up, and when they show up, the prosecution has to kind of tell them what the hell they have. And this is called discovery. I'm sure you all know this. So basically, it's just, sometimes they don't do it though. That's for sure. But so basically, discovery is just so that they're working on the same playing field. They know what information they have. They know how to defend their clients. So because they did this, it was an 18-page court filing. All of that information magically leaked on Twitter with a Twitter account called @HackingRedstone. It posted a message in late October 2018 claiming access to the special counsel's investigations database, saying, quote, as we hacked Russian servers with info from the Russian troll case Concord LLC versus Mueller, you can view all the files Mueller had about the IRA, that's the Internet Research Agency, and Russian collusion. Enjoy the reading. So because they followed the rule of law, the Russians are really good at using our own laws against us. Because they did that, they gave a lot of evidence and a lot of top secret information to the Russian oligarchs, to Putin. I understand they have to do it, but now Mueller lodged a complaint in an 18-page court filing that objects to a discovery request from the Russian company Concord Management and Consulting, which has been charged with helping orchestrate the massive online campaign. The same day as the tweet, Mueller's office said in an unidentified report, an unidentified reporter contacted the special counsel and explained the receipt of a direct message via Twitter from an individual who, quote, who stated that they had received a discovery material by hacking into a Russian legal company that had obtained discovery material from Reed Smith, the U.S.-based law firm representing Concord. Mueller's office said that with the help of the FBI, it determined more than 1,000 of the 300,000 files on the website linked from hacking Redstone tweet, including markings unique to materials that it had shared with Concord during earlier rounds of discovery. The FBI also determined that the website was registered about a week before the @issue tweet with an IP address in Russia. So the Russians, were able to come out with some good information on what's going on in the mind of Mueller and what's going to be happening there with the Mueller investigation.
Sweet.
All right, so there it is. That's the most up-to-date information on the Russia investigation, and I just say get it done. Get it done. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know how CNN spends 24 hours a day talking about it. I mean, I watch it. It's a lot of drivel, is what I say. But who knows? All right, let's move on. Just lastly, the Trump administration said on Friday it was suspending one of the last major nuclear arms control treaties with Russia following 5 years of heated conversations between the two powers that failed to resolve a long-running American accusation that Moscow was violating the Reagan-era agreement. This is according to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who may be running for Senate, by the way, announced the decision declaring that, quote, countries must be held accountable when they break the rules. He said the United States would terminate the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 6 months unless Russia destroyed its growing arsenal of intermediate range missiles and launchers. He goes on to say, we can no longer be restricted by the treaty while Russia shamelessly violates it. So far, the Russian government has been unwilling to admit that a missile it has deployed near European borders violates the treaty's terms. Also, we have to keep in mind when it comes to what's going on in China, they're continuing to ramp up their missiles. Right now, it's said that Beijing's growing nuclear arsenal currently consists of missiles that fall into the ranges, land-based missiles able to fly 300 to 3,400 miles that are prohibited by the treaty, which applies only to Russia and the United States. So, we'll see. Again, basically, so you understand, right? Mm-hmm. So basically the U.S. and Russia are playing by two different sets of rules, and the Chinese are just like, screw it, we're not in this treaty. So who knows, does this lead to another nuclear arms race? Who knows? Let's go back to the good old days of the Cold War era.
All I know is you can't hug your children with nuclear arms.
You can't do it.
Has anyone told Russia that?
No, they haven't. They have not. The Russian government accused the Trump administration of looking for any excuse to get out of the treaty. So this is according to Dmitry S. Peskov, a spokesperson for President Vladimir Putin. He says, on the whole, the reluctance of Americans to listen to reason and to hold any kind of substantive talk with us shows that that Washington decided to crush the treaty a long time ago. So there we go. Nuclear strategy. But a nuclear strategy published by the Pentagon last year makes clear that preparations are being made to counter Beijing's deployments. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO, the military alliance that was created to counter the Soviet threat 70 years ago, endorsed the announcement that was made by Pompeo. So it looks like we're getting some international support over this. Again, what does it mean? Who knows? Is there another arms race looming in the background? It's possible, I suppose. But, that's just the way this stuff kind of works, right? So, all right. So there it is. I guess that's basically the news. And now we have an interview. Is that the news?
That's the news.
That's the news for this past week.
And that's the news.
And that's the news as I see it.
Have you ever seen The Newsroom?
The dude who shoots himself in the head?
No, the Jeff Daniels, Aaron Sorkin show.
I did watch that a little bit, yeah. It was too pretentious for me. Because he was like a Keith Olbermann type, and I was like, you're just an insufferable...
Just do the news.
Just do the news, yeah. I like, what's the one that I'm thinking of where he shoots himself at the end? He says,
you're thinking of
it's great. Network.
Yes.
Network is, I'm more of a network guy than whatever the hell that was. Aaron Sorkin doesn't write like a human being. No humans talk like that.
No, he writes like a pill addict.
Right. And then it's like, and not everyone, if everyone was so like whimsical and witty all the time, I'd end like the dude in Network.
Yeah,
I would shoot myself in the head. Like I just like, whatever happened to just a good boring person? I love a good boring person.
Yeah, that's most of the country. It's
great.
That's what's so great about this country is everyone is actually very boring.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's how it should be. That's why this is the best country on earth. Boring.
Please do not be sardonic with me.
I hate it. All right. Well, now let's do this interview. This is with Mohanad Elshieky. And again, I just think it's interesting. We should hear what happens. It's just an interesting slice of life, and it's a situation that I will not find myself in. I don't think Travis will find himself in. Henry and Marcus and many of you won't find yourself in his situation. And I think it's just a good perspective, and it's important to understand what this stuff looks like in real life, specifically when it comes to immigration. And we're doing our 3-parter on Mengele. And just the idea of government officials asking for papers.
It's just appalling.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's just a little scary. So anyway, enjoy the interview. Hey, what's up, everyone? Ben Kissel. All right, so we have a cool interview coming up. It's interesting. It's with this dude. Now, he is a Team Coco. That's Conan O'Brien. He's a comic to watch. And I saw him on Twitter. And he had a fascinating Twitter story, but it's a real-life story. His name is Mohanad Elshieky. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story regarding your interaction with ICE.
Yeah, thank you, man.
So can we just go back? So what the heck happened here? Because I don't want to just read your tweet story. People can follow you on Twitter, and I'll give them, I'll spell it out for them so they can find you. So what happened?
I was in Washington, specifically in the city of Pullman. I was doing a show there on Saturday night at Washington State University, and then the next day I was going back to Portland, where I live.
Okay, love Portland.
Yeah, I do live in Portland. Yeah. So I took the bus from Pullman to Spokane because I had to do a bus transfer there.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed at the station for like maybe 3 hours, just waiting for the next bus. The bus came around 11:15, and we started boarding. I got into the bus. I showed the bus driver my ticket. He scanned it and everything was fine. Checked in my luggage. And then I went to the back of the bus and just sat there, was just like looking at my phone, just like texting and stuff.
Right.
Until 2 people in a green uniform came in to the bus, and they started randomly like asking like people for IDs and stuff. I was like, oh, there must be people who work for the bus station. They're trying to match my name on my ID to the ticket. I've had that happen before, so I'm like not worried about it.
Right.
Yeah, so they approached me, and then they were like, do you have to get your ID or like identification and stuff? So I gave them my Oregon driver's license, and then they asked me, like, they were like, are you a citizen? And I was like, okay, that's a weird thing to ask. I was like, no, I'm not a citizen. And they're like, oh, do you have a passport? I was like, no, why would I carry a passport on a bus?
Right, exactly, on a Greyhound bus. So, it's just, it's chilling, right, when we have these situations of, papers, please, show me your papers, please. When you were at the bus station, was there anything, anything out of the ordinary when you're sitting on this bus? I mean, I've been on many Greyhound buses. I'm assuming this was Greyhound, maybe Peter Pan if you're really fancy. I don't know.
It's like Greyhound.
But was there anything out of the ordinary when you were at the bus station or sitting on the bus, or did this just feel totally random?
No, it looked absolutely normal. Like there was like nothing happening there. And then like once they got my once I told them like I wasn't a citizen, and I was like, and they were like, what country are you a citizen of? And I was like, I'm a citizen of Libya. And then they were like, okay, can you come with us outside? And I was like, okay, sure. And I walked with them outside. They asked me if I had my identification on me, and I said, yeah, I do. I have a work permit. and that work permit has been given to me by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically like through them.
And how long is your work permit good for?
So here's the thing: the work permit is valid until the end, like the July of 2019.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was carrying the work permit even though I don't need it anymore, given the fact that I was granted asylum in last October. So that work permit, even though it was valid, even though I had it, I didn't have it. I didn't need it anymore for work because I was granted asylum. I had it on me anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So and now how were you able to be granted asylum? Because I know that process is just so completely difficult, and it's getting more difficult every day, it seems.
Yeah.
How long did that process take?
For me, it took exactly 4 years.
Okay.
4 years where I had to do a lot of paperwork and prove my case and everything. I did an interview with immigration that lasted 4 hours, and they asked me about every detail of my life and dates and pictures, and they did a background check on me that lasted for years. And
right.
I mean, it's a very long process.
So you are. It is safe to say you are a fully vetted resident of America. You are fully. They've gotten all the information they could ever need. But nonetheless, we're in this situation, Greyhound bus, walking out with these two folks.
They know more about me than anyone else.
Okay. Well, that's horrifying, but interesting.
Yeah. And then when I gave them my IDs, and then they looked through them, and then they were like, "Do you have your asylum approval on you?" Obviously, before they asked me if I had my asylum approval on, I told them when I applied for asylum, when it was granted, gave them all the details, and then they were like, "Do you have the asylum approval on you?" And I was like, "No, I don't carry that with me." And I said the reason I don't carry it with me because I was advised not to carry it with me because this is a very important document that if I don't need it, if it gets lost or anything, then I'm jeopardizing my stay in this country as well.
Right.
So I'm no, I have safe in my home because I only need it when I need to apply for a job or get a job or something like that. I don't want to be carrying it around in my backpack everywhere.
Right.
And then I was also I was told all they need is your identification, and they can check online or they call immigration, and once they verify you, because I'm in the system, that's it. I don't need to. Everything is electronic now.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think this wouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But then oh no, the paper you gave us, illegals have them all the time, and I was like, what? What do you mean illegal? I put the word illegals multiple times, and I was like, this work permit is fraud proof.
Okay, so you're talking with these two ICE agents outside of the Greyhound bus. They continually call you. They say illegals have documentation. They have all of their paperwork regarding asylum, and they continually say the word illegals, which I find I want to hear your emotional thoughts on that. Personally, it just seems dehumanizing and a way to treat someone as an other. But what did you think when they were calling you an illegal or referencing people as illegals in general?
Yeah, well, people pointed out to me that the people that stopped me were CBP, the patrol agents or something, and they were in ICE. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
But obviously they work for the Homeland, both of them. But anyway, so yeah, they asked me. When they were calling me illegal and stuff, I was honestly getting really upset. I was getting really furious because it was very frustrating. Because I've spent thousands of dollars, I've done everything by the book, I have followed the laws and the process, and then I got my papers, carried them with me, and then to be called illegal, it felt very dehumanizing. It felt like I was a second class human being. It just felt what was even the point of having to retell my story and having to be questioned over and over and over again by immigration officers. At the time, I was very happy. I was oh no, I'm untouchable now. And then the minute I use a bus for a job.
Right.
I get stopped and I get like searched and I get questions and it was just like, oh man, how far up do I have to go for them to treat me as a person, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And was anyone else taken off of this bus and detained and asked for their papers, or were they specifically there for you?
No, yes, so when they came on the bus, they claim they asked everyone on the bus. Obviously, they did not, because the proof of citizenship they were asking for was a U.S. passport. Now, it would be ridiculous to say that they've asked 20 people on the bus, and every one of those people carried a U.S. passport. Impossible.
Yeah, on a Greyhound bus? Yeah, I'm going to say that's impossible.
Yeah. And then they've asked 4 people top. And those 4 people, I looked through all of these people. They all looked like they might be like Hispanic, like kind of like vaguely ethnic, brown, stuff, something like that. So they were like just like pointing at people, like asking them like about like their citizenship and stuff.
Right.
They weren't going around like asking like white Americans about like their papers, because they were like, you can go. Yeah. I went back on the bus. I believe that like one person also like came back on the bus. They took one person. That's what I saw.
Okay.
They detained one person and they took that person with them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what did you have a chance to hear the interaction with the individual that they did end up detaining, and God knows what that life is like?
I did not. No. After they accused me of like accused my papers of being fake and everything, an officer like was calling someone on the phone, and I assume it was like someone who worked with them, who was supposed to kind of like verify my status.
Right.
And then they were calling, and he was reading like numbers off of my work permit, and like gave them my name, my date of birth, everything.
Right.
And then that went for like a few minutes, and then the call ended. And then like until that point, I was like, okay, you know what? They're gonna call, they're gonna verify me, and they're gonna let me go.
Right.
It's as easy as that. Then I was, to my surprise, he was like, yeah, we have no records of your asylum.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what do you mean no records of my asylum? I was like, this is impossible. Like, what's happening?
Right.
And I was like, I have asylum. I have it approved. I have all the papers. And they were like, nope, no records.
Oh my God.
Is it valid or not? Like, did you ask him about the work permit? He wouldn't answer that question. He was like, no. Yeah, and every word I said, every like defense I made, every statement I made, they would say, oh, we've heard that so many times from illegals. Illegals say that all the time. So it was like, so it doesn't matter what I say. Like, anything I say, you'll be like, oh yeah, we've heard that a million times.
Right.
Trash, no. And I was like, and then I got frustrated, and I was like, hey, this is, you know what, this is what you're doing now is illegal. Like, I was like, I need my papers back right now.
Right.
Or I'm going to call my lawyer, and I'm going to, like, pursue legal action. This is not okay.
Right.
And then immigration officer suddenly, like, he was mostly quiet the whole time. The other immigration officer started yelling at me to take my hands out of my pockets, which was weird because I had them in my pockets throughout the whole interaction.
Okay.
And they did not say a single word. And obviously, I wasn't doing that out of disrespect. It was just freezing cold outside.
Yeah, it's the winter.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, I'll take my hands out. I took them out because at that point, it seemed to me that they were only trying to get a reaction out of me.
Right.
They wanted me like to lose it or to like say something so they can detain me for a different reason. So I was like,
right.
I'm just gonna keep it cool. It doesn't matter because I've watched so many documentaries. So I just put my hands out and everything. And then eventually they were like, hey man, carry your legal papers on you. Can't like have your papers on you. And I didn't say anything back to them.
Okay.
I just went on the bus. Yeah. And all I was thinking about that time was like, did it even matter? Like, even if I had my asylum approval on you, you will probably be like, yep, the illegals have that all the time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it just seems absolutely demoralizing after 4 years of asylum. And how were you able to get asylum? Because I know that's a really difficult process.
Yeah.
Obviously, Libya is in the midst of a violent situation right now, post-Gaddafi era.
That is very true. Yes. I mean, the reason I applied for political asylum at the time, it was due to many reasons. I was politically active back home. I used to host my own radio show that a lot of people deemed to be very liberal and very Western.
Yeah.
The ideas that we talked about and stuff. But also, I wrote a post about it today. But I worked with so many people who were like U.S. citizens who were in Libya covering the war at the time.
Right.
And also, I worked for programs and stuff that were sponsored by the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi at the time.
Okay.
With the ambassador before Chris Stevens, so it was just like all of these reasons, and then me coming to the U.S. on an exchange program sponsored by the Department of State that made people, listeners back home and stuff like that, they were very sure that I was recruited by the U.S. government to spy on Libya.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So it got to the point where I was getting calls from my family and stuff who got their house broken into twice because they were trying to find stuff on me, and my dad was questions and put in jail for 2 or 3 days, just being asked about me and me being involved with the U.S. government and all of that. So it got to the point where it wasn't because just of the war, it was me personally. If I went back home, I would be immediately either kidnapped, killed, or something. So
Right.
I had to apply for asylum, and obviously all of these claims, I had proofs of them. I had copies of the death threats I got.
Right.
So my case was very strong, and it was easily proved. But yes, that was the main reason.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, right now, and thank you so much for just sharing that story. I mean, it's just extremely frustrating after going through all of that.
It is.
And then having, I don't know, just being treated with that kind of disrespect it seems like the culture that we're in right now, it's totally normalized, and something has to change with that. But going back, just really quick here with Libya, and I would love to have you back on the show when we have a little bit more time.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's Libya like now? It's out of the news. And can you compare it a little bit? I know this is a big question, but pre-Gaddafi, post-Gaddafi, what's the different realities right now in Libya?
Yeah, it is. Everyone, I would say, is very confused about what their role is, because there is at least 2 governments, one in the east, one in the west, and each government has power, and there's so many militias and so many, and each group is equally strong, and every group wants to spread this ideology.
Right.
You have a lot of Islamic groups, and each has an ideology, and then you have the military, and then you have the Muslim Brotherhood, and you have all of that.
Right.
Now, pre-Gaddafi, it was oppressive in a different way. So I would say pre and post, it was very oppressive. It was just a different kind of oppression. At least with Gaddafi, it was a person who we hated.
Right.
Post Gaddafi, it was just so many people who were just
Right. Yeah. So you had one focus of rage, one main culprit for your problems when Gaddafi is in charge, and now it is much more sporadic, and you don't know who to trust and who not to trust, huh?
Exactly.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much. So you got back on the bus, and everything you got to your destination, and you're safe.
Got back on the bus and just went back home, and spent my bus ride just reading about my rights and stuff, because I was worried that we get stopped again on the way back.
Oh my God. Man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That does you didn't do anything wrong. You're taking a freaking Greyhound bus. That's punishment enough.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Well, thank you so much. And you got to come back on the show. I would love to speak with you further about, just Libya and in general and stuff like that. So I would love to have you back on.
Absolutely.
Mohanad Elshieky, thank you, my man. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I hope you liked the interview. He's a great guy. We're going to have him back on, too, to talk more about just his experience growing up in Libya, pre-Gaddafi, post-Gaddafi, A lot has changed over there. So thank you all so much for listening. You can email thelastpodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts, and maybe I'll do an episode where I read emails. That would be kind of fun. BenK721@gmail.com as well. If you want to email me some personal stories. I used to do the dumpster fire chats where I always enjoyed reading emails. And so maybe I'll do that again. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Hail yourselves. We'll talk to you soon. And we'll see you at the Bell House in March.
And remember, attack, attack, attack.
Attack, attack, attack.
And business is business.
Business is business. It's half off all of Roger Stone's goods if you go to rogerstone.com. Is it rogerstone.com?
It is the stonecoldtruth.com.
Of course it is.
You can also get your Clinton rape shirt, which is a picture
Great.
of Bill Clinton with the word rape on it.
There it is. That's one of his best-selling items. All right, everyone. Hail yourselves. Talk to you soon.
This show is made possible by listeners like you. Thanks to our ad sponsors, you can support our shows by supporting them. For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to lastpodcastnetwork.com.